the day, it's just football. What I do want to ask you, yeah, and I probably, you're an honest man, and me the same, and everyone else. So I probably know your answers already. Like before we get into Madueke and why that's being signed, obviously, people, Harry, as you know, they can have their opinions. They can think he's the best thing since sliced bread. They can equally think he's terrible. They can be open to be proven right or wrong. For me personally, though, once it starts crossing over the line, and I'm aware that social media doesn't mimic society in it, he will get all the love he will at Arsenal. But when I'm seeing hashtags and people DMing the guy and getting at him and things like that, I feel it's doing a bit too much, because these are the same folk that, God forbid, if it went left with Madueke, would preach about mental health and being kind to people. What have you made of that kind of potentially overreaction?
Yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it? It's ridiculous. Like, why you would think that sending the guy a DM would in any way, shape, or form improve his chances of succeeding at Arsenal. Because let's have it right, whether you or I like it or not, Arsenal are interested in Noni Madueke. And I'd imagine from this point onwards, Arsenal will get this deal done. We don't need hashtags. We don't need DMs. We don't need any of that stuff. I think it's fine to express a concern about the transfer. I think it's fine to ask the question of why. But I think it shouldn't get personal. I mean, I know for me, it's not personal at all. For me, it's about the bigger picture and the wider context. Do I think Noni Madueke is a bad player? No. I've never said that. Do I think he's a good enough player that we should move heaven and earth to sign him? No. But that doesn't mean I'm going to write him off. I just think for me, people are worried and people are anxious about the bigger picture and what the window is going to look like. And when you're hearing Rodrigo, but you're hearing of a crazy price, or maybe it's not a crazy price, but certainly in terms of, Arsenal have only ever got close
It'd be a big outlay.
Yeah, Arsenal have only got close to paying that amount of money once, and it was on Declan Rice. So the likelihood of them doing that again, how do people feel about that? Not sure. So that feels a little bit out of reach. There was that hope, and there is that hope, and people are maybe still holding on to that. But if you go and spend 50 on a player that in the eyes of many isn't going to be a needle mover, either Arsenal are then going to go and spend a ton of money and make you all kind of eat your words, or they're not, and you're going to end up with lesser recruits. So I get it. I get the frustration. I really do. I'm not on board with this signing. But to go and DM him and all the rest of it, and to kind of start these, I saw someone, I don't know if it was a screenshot or if it was real, start a petition.
Yeah.
My God.
I saw that as well, like doing way too much, way too much. And it makes me want him to succeed even more, even though I'm with you in that I struggle to wrap my head around it. I'm not really a fan of the signing. I know Mikel Arteta has talked about goosebumps and all of that kind of stuff. I'm not really for it. What I will say is, though, obviously, when you got your fan cap on, and you kind of alluded to it, when you're linked with Rodrigo and Eze and all the rest of it, you want to see, and Gyökeres actually, you want to see the kind of these guys come through the door first. And if they are to sign Madueke, it's not that these question marks won't be there, but you'd say, all right, I can kind of see where you're going with it. Unfortunately, that's not how football works, as we all know. There's several moving parts. So it's like when you're seeing the Madueke stuff, I think this signing will kind of be judged on what we do in addition. I don't really want to get at Madueke, and I don't know if these guys would succeed, but you look at the João Pedro deal for near enough the same amount. You look at Kudus, who went to them lot down the lane. It just thinks, could you have bought someone that's a better signing? I want to ask you though, man, like, help me rationalize this, please. Like, why are we going for Madueke? Like, what sort of positives are there to his signing? Like, I am scratching my head.
All right. So if I try, listen, I've been accused of being an Arsenal PR man for such a long time.
Join the club, man.
That, it's about time that, we came into work and put some spin on this. But look, I'm finding it hard. I am. I think there's a few attributes he has that we probably could do with a bit more of within our group. So I think we need more dribblers. I think we need more people that are willing to take the ball on themselves and try and unlock the opposition rather than passing it from left and right and waiting for that gap to open. So in that sense, I think he brings something we don't have. I think we could do with more pace. I think he's got pace. I think he does have a desire to score goals. And again, you could never have too much of that. So I think if I'm trying to look at the positives, those are some of the things that he brings to the table. He's young, still got room to develop, but the drawbacks for me outweigh the pros. And that's where I can understand why people are getting frustrated. But to your earlier point, which, by the way, I thought was spot on, if you go and sign Gyökeres and then you sign Eberechi Eze and then you bring Noni Madueke in as a third player, people look at it differently. Also, if he comes from someone else, not Chelsea, people will look at it differently. So what you need to do here is Yes, feel the way you feel and feel angry and upset about it if that's how you want to feel. But put your brakes on, hit the brakes and pause for a minute. Wait and see what happens in the remainder of the window. Because I think if we get the bigger signings in terms of what we want, I think you will then soften your stance on Noni Madueke. That's how I'm looking at it.
That's the kind of way I'm looking at it. Is like the positives I will give him is maybe he's got a point to prove being cast out by Chelsea. Obviously, you know, Arteta's shown he can improve players. Maybe even not to go over to the social media stuff, but he does strike me as a player that wouldn't necessarily crumble with that level of abuse. He'll probably want to put people in their place. Does have a lot of upside. And to be fair, a lot of fans have been saying on my social media platforms to me, it's like we cry about Bukayo Saka back up, and we finally got an out and out right winger who can play in other positions. And then now that we signed him, I'm making noise. In which, in theory, I get it. I don't think this is a player that takes us to the next level. I question mark the fee as well, because I don't know how much Arsenal have to spend. You'd imagine we'll spend in and around 200 million if everything happens. But if we have to watch our pennies a bit more, why overspend for Madueke like 50 million? I understand English tax, longevity, the market and everything, but surely this 50 million could have been better spent elsewhere.
Yeah, we were talking on my podcast this morning. I was with Phil Costa, and he said you don't get value. You don't get value in the Premier League anymore, and he's absolutely right. I mean, if you're Chelsea, now listen, I don't think we should be paying this fee. Let me say that clearly. I don't think we should be paying this fee. But if you're Chelsea, you're looking around and you're going, well, Elanga's going for 55, 60 million quid. And there's other examples of wingers being on the market for big money. Chelsea probably don't desperately want to sell Noni Madueke. They're probably in one of those positions, I'd imagine, because let's be honest, he's not a Chelsea reject. He's not been completely cast aside. He's still in and around the team. They're probably looking at this and going, look, if the money's right, we'll entertain it. If it's not, we're also fine with keeping a hold of him. So I guess from Arsenal's perspective, if you really want the player, you're going to have to make an attractive offer. But I just don't understand, and I can't see why we so desperately want this player, and what it is that he will bring that moves the needle for Arsenal. And I just think maybe I'm old school, man. I remember when £30 million was the be-all and end-all of a transfer.
Yeah, exactly.
So I accept that I find this more difficult than maybe younger people who have grown up with 60, 70 million pound transfer fees just being the norm. But let's see what's going to happen.
Do you think we're betting on too much potential? Maybe not necessarily isolated to Madueke, but a lot of rumours you see in that Mikel Arteta is convinced on his potential, convinced he could cut his teeth as a left winger. And in terms of a squad player, if this wasn't for 50 million, then I'd be all behind it. But as much as I want potential, you could argue there's a couple of players, the Wanyeris, the Martinellis, that if that's what Arteta wants to do, you've got those. I don't see how he's going to, if he is going to be a long-term left winger, what some reports say, at this moment in time, in hindsight, it might come out as a masterstroke, but at this moment in time, is he arguably better than Martinelli, Trossard, or is it the same thing? Like, why does it feel that we're kind of betting too much on what he could be rather than like what he is at this moment in time?
Yeah, like he's not going to come in and replace Bukayo. If he can protect Bukayo a little bit, which I think we all learned our lesson is necessary last season, then fine. But on the left wing, I wanted a needle mover. I wanted a left winger that I would look at and go, you're the guy. And I wanted Martinelli ideally to become second fiddle. And I probably would sell Leandro Trossard if I could get around about 15 to 20 million pounds for him, because I look at his contract situation and, it's in a precarious position.
Delicate.
Yeah, it's delicate. Exactly. So I just look at Madueke and I think, well, he's better on the right. But then if I flip him over to the left, can I hand on heart say that he's definitely better than Martinelli? I think he might score more goals than Gabriel Martinelli, but I don't know if he'll give you the same all-round game in terms of the work rate, the defensive brilliance that Martinelli brings you, the stability that he gives you on that left-hand side, and the license he gives our fullback to invert inside, because you can bank on him to be switched on defensively. You don't get that out of every winger. So overall, bigger picture, I don't know if he is better than Gabriel Martinelli, or at least by enough for me to say, yep, 50 million pounds, let's do it.
Does it concern you as well, Harry? Because obviously you're not an accountant, neither am I, and nobody really knows what the club's working with. But for us, it feels like whether I like Madueke or not, 50 or 55 or whatever million is a significant investment. You're going to probably spend about 60, 70 on Gyökeres. You throw in the 50 for Zubamendi, and to be fair, on the face of it, Kepa Norgard. Once you add up the cost, it looks like a significant amount. Do you think this could put a dent in our pursuits of an Eze for 60 odd million or Rodrigo? Now, obviously, finances are one thing, these players wanting to move and all the pennies falling into place is another. But surely this is a significant outlay of our transfer fee and it could have ramifications. But where are you at with it?
Yeah, it could, of course, because listen, as much as we want to say that Arsenal have invested money in recent years and all the rest of it, we saw a bit of a winding back of that last summer because we sold a lot. And in terms of
True.
outlay, on top of that, we didn't really break the bank, did we? And we all knew we needed to. So that was the first time I looked at it and I went, come on, like you've made that investment to get us to being competitive, but where's that hunger and desire now to get us over the line? And it felt like last summer we scaled back. I know that you can't do this every single summer. I know you can't go and throw the kitchen sink at the transfer market every single summer. And if you're having to do that, it means the business you did in the first place was poor. So I get that. But this time around, like, yes, it feels like there's going to be more investment than last season, but it feels like we're at that stage where we need top tier talents who are going to make the difference. And we need to strengthen in the most expensive area of the pitch, which is up front. So if you see a significant portion of that money being put down to try and sign a player that you're not sure about and maybe isn't even better than what we've got, you are going to ask questions, and it's absolutely right to do that. People keep saying and people keep reporting that our pursuit of Eberechi Eze remains ongoing. The fact that we are moving for Noni Madueke does not mean that we're going to pull out of any Eberechi Eze deal. But you still got to get that done.
Yeah.
You know, you still got to get that done. And again, it comes down to the bigger and wider context. You go and get Eze in and Gyökeres in, as well as Madueke. I promise you, people will look at the Madueke deal a lot more favorably. Timing is important. Yeah, timing is important. Context is important. And that's why I keep saying, I've been saying it over and over again today, hit the brakes. We all have our feelings about Noni Madueke and that potential signing. Hit the brakes for now. Let's see what else develops and unfolds. And then only then we'll know how much of a gamble and how much of a risk we've taken here.
That's the thing. Like that's why I said earlier. Like my only hope is that this looks like a masterstroke. Arteta and Arsenal saw the brilliance of Madueke before we could. At this moment in time, that's not exactly the case to me. And I must admit, obviously, I personally think as much as I have Madueke down as a squad player and we want Eze and Rodrigo, I think he's probably been told. And again, managers tell players everything, but I think he's probably been told you're going to feature a lot more than you think. You're going to deputize for Saka. You might even make the left wing your own because I'm sure he wants to go to the World Cup and things of that ilk. And apparently we was looking at him last summer. I mean, I'm not too sure on how true that is. You see a lot of rumors, but I think he's going to play a lot. Now, when I look at Madueke, and it's more when I speak to Chelsea fans, when I go through like the blogs and things, I don't want to speak about attitude and things of that ilk because I'd imagine Arsenal have done their background check if this is going to accelerate. But and how would you feel? Because I see rumors about like his work rate isn't quite there. He's got a bit of an attitude problem. He's complacent when he scores. There's rumors about off the field. He's not the most professional. Surely, if these rumors were true, it doesn't make sense, surely, based on what we've eradicated from the club and what we've assembled at the moment.
I think sometimes your behavior mirrors your environment. And if you're a very young man, and I know when I was 21, 22 years old, I wasn't the same person I am now.
True.
You know, people grow, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with looking at people growing. I don't know why we always want to kind of beat people with a stick for maybe things they did or said in their younger days. There was a couple of things with Madueke that I didn't really like. I didn't really like that whole thing about the penalty last season.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, stuff like that. I didn't like the post he put out about Wolverhampton. I don't think it was the end of the world, but I don't think that did him any favors in terms of his image. So there are things that, you know, ideally, you know, he wouldn't have done or said, but we can all look back and say, you know, we shouldn't have done this or we shouldn't have done that. I don't want to beat people up for that. And I think if he's in the right environment and I think if he's in the right place, I think you get a Noni Madueke that will realize that I can't be this guy in this environment. I need to change. I need to strip that back a little bit. And I'm, I'm always up for giving people a chance to show the best version of themselves.
And I think that's it. I mean, it's just a lot of hope. But and again, for me, my feeling is I'm not going to really. Obviously, I'll praise and critique Madueke where it's obviously due. But I'm past the point of getting Madueke because they didn't assign, like, you didn't sign yourself in it. The club looked for you and brought you in. If we don't do what needs to be done next season, then I have to look at the recruitment, because I do think it's betting on a lot of potential. Where we know what we've needed to do last Jan and last summer, we're betting a lot on things of that ilk. I do have to ask you as well, why does it feel like we always, in your opinion, why does it feel like we're always shopping in Chelsea, at Chelsea? Like, it feels like it's become a running joke with us fans, but we literally always have some level of shopping at Chelsea in the last few windows. Like, why is that for you?
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. If I try and look at it from the other point of view, then maybe we're going to say that it's because they have a thing about stockpiling talented players, don't always have room in the squad to use them. And because they, like, in some instances, like, for example, Jorginho, right? Jorginho weren't getting a look in at Chelsea at that point, but £10 million, you're like, fine. That's something we need. And they've got it. It's like going to a car boot sale, right? That's their junk, if you like. And I don't mean that disrespectfully to Jorginho, but someone else's junk is another man's treasure. Like, someone
exactly.
That's how it works. But when I get frustrated. Like, Kai Havertz was one that divided opinion, right? This is the one that I think is most comparable to Madueke. But at least with Kai Havertz, there were some people out there that were looking at it and going, actually, this could work for us. I think we all agreed unanimously that we paid too much money for him. I think that's fair to say. But I think, generally speaking, the transfer has worked out okay. Not amazingly, but okay. With Madueke, though, I can't remember seeing such strong feeling against.
We're all unanimous that we don't want him, if I'm honest.
It's crazy. At least we're united. That's one thing.
For once, yeah. which is mad. Go on, Aaron.
It's a tough one. It's a really tough one. But the thing with Chelsea, it's annoying. It's irritating. And I'll tell you why it's irritating. Because we constantly hear of them going through financial issues, trying to meet this restriction and that restriction and all of that. And it feels like we're helping them, which is annoying. And also, they still somehow, every summer, with all these problems around the restrictions, still seem to go out and invest every single year. And we are playing our part in that, because we keep giving them money for players that essentially, in a lot of cases, they're happy to let us have. It's not like, it's the perception. If you went in there now and you kicked the door down and you dragged out, I don't know, who's a promising Chelsea player, you dragged out Cole Palmer and you paid big money, but you landed Cole Palmer, you'd go, we took your
fair enough.
Player. Yeah, we took your best player or one of your best players. But here it's like we're going in and we're like, it's like they're leaving their rubbish out by the front door and we're walking past and having a little stop and going, what, we'll take that. And that's why people are getting annoyed by
Leaving the sofa by the end of the road and somebody's just put it in their car.
Exactly. I completely get it. I completely understand why people are fed up of it.
Do you feel like Madueke signing could mean no to Eze? Because on one hand, I don't, but then on the other hand, I guess I'm just thinking about the finances. Like, I must admit, Harry, I am starting to believe now, and we'll get on to Gyökeres. I think it's only going to be a Gyökeres and Madueke thing. Maybe I'm down in the dumps and tomorrow I'll say something different, but I'm starting to believe like the Madueke thing says no to Rodrigo, if there was any hope, and no to Eze.
I hope it's not, because if it is just Madueke and Gyökeres, then that is going to make the Madueke feeling even stronger, and he's going to be under so much pressure. And I don't want that for any player coming into Arsenal, man. I just don't want that. It's not fair. Like, we've had this kind of toxicity around the club before. And when I say toxicity, I'm not talking about people expressing their opinions. I'm talking about that kind of, the people inside the stadium that turn up and like huff and puff and moan and groan every time something doesn't go the way you want. So yeah, look, I do worry that, look, I think we'll still try and get Eze. I'll tell you what my worry is, DG. I think that there's a worry that Arsenal are going to try and do the Eze deal in a way that just doesn't work for Palace. And if that's the case, and we could have spent an extra 10 million to wrap it up, but we've already put that into Madueke. That's where the frustration is going to come. I've got no reason to believe that we won't still try and sign Eze, and I've got no reason to believe that we can't. So until then, I'm going to stay calm on it. But if, again, contextually, at the end of the window, you look back and you go, well, we couldn't get Eze because we couldn't meet Palace's demand.
Then we shot ourselves in the foot.
Exactly, because we spent too much money on it, on Madueke. That's not going to go down well, is it?
I mean, like, it's too early to judge Berta, but I know a lot of fans would have probably been excited about him, myself included. Has anything changed? Because we're still shopping at Chelsea. I'm being a bit disingenuous, but obviously Tomiyasu's contract was ripped up. We've seen that before. It seems like, and again, no negotiations are the same, but Madueke is someone that's got a foot out the door at Chelsea. There's a willingness to overpay and accelerate this deal. The others are dragged out. Like, has anything really changed?
It's
a difficult one.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really, really hard. I mean, if you zoom out and you look at the window so far, I think this is where the frustration comes from. I think there's frustration coming from all different angles. Yeah, so it's the Chelsea factor, it's the we want other players factor, it's the not everybody's convinced by Madueke factor, it's the price. It's a combination of things. It's like this lethal cocktail that's been poured for you to drink, and you know that it's going to do you damage. Basically,
spitting facts, man. And the frustrations of last season, how it panned out, and our want of major trophies. It's like everything's mixed in, Harry, and we're just angry now. Anything that doesn't make sense, we're biting at it.
Yeah, that's the other one, isn't it? Desperation to win.
It's mad, man. Like Madueke, I wish you all the best if you do sign for Arsenal. At the end of the day, there's going to be answers if it doesn't work out, because we have shot ourselves in the foot. We've gone over that. I mean, the petition is very excessive. What do you make of this as well? Because it kind of piggybanks on stuff. The Times said Arsenal have been searching for a left winger and also considered Rodrigo, Morgan Rogers, Anthony Gordon, and Nico Williams. However, all would cost more than Madueke, and Berta is determined to not overspend. Surely, if you want those players like the Eze's, quote unquote, with his release clause, to Rodrigo's, I know Nico Williams signed a new deal. You have to be prepared to quote unquote overpay and give them great wages. You could argue, as great as Declan Rice has been, we overpaid in that regards, and it's very different, but we're overpaying for Madueke. So if you're going to do that for them, surely you could do it for these kind of players, assuming they were all available and life was fair.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I don't really believe a lot of this stuff. Like, I don't know, how much of that is legit, because I realized yesterday, and I'm just scrolling through it now. I'm trying to find out whether it was changed, because basically there was a part in the Athletics article that announced that Arsenal were opening talks or had made contact with Chelsea over Madueke that mentioned these players, right? It mentioned
and then they removed Rogers,
and then they took it out. And I think the reason they took it out, I don't know this for sure, but my guess would be that they didn't mean it in the way that it was being taken by everybody. And what they didn't want is everybody going, the Athletic said that because we're signing Madueke, we can't go and get any of these players. And I think they realized that very fast and went, hold on, this is, even if it makes sense, it's giving the wrong impression. So they took it out. So then when I see someone else follow up or report something very similar, I feel like there's a bit of piggybacking going on there.
And that's the thing. You're right.
Yeah. And listen, whatever people say, like, not every outlet's going to get everything right, but the Athletic is the top at the moment. Like, they are the standard. So I think a lot of the time, and you will agree with me on this, I think it's not to shit on anybody else's work. It's not to say that nobody else gets exclusive stories, but it does feel like every time the Athletic publish something, every other outlet follows and they add their own little bit, maybe that they've sourced themselves, or they try and attack it from a slightly different angle.
Unless it's hand of Arsenal.
Yeah.
Which exactly. Is like you're speaking facts, and I just think, obviously, I'm not criticizing any journalists in that, but naturally fans are just hoping for everything. Everyone's got to spin a story a bit of a way, like you said, and add a bit of context to it in their own way. And everybody just hoping, like, if you think Arsenal's not going to do anything in the market, you're just going to keep finding negative content. And if you're happy as Larry, you think we're going to get Rodrigo, this one, that one, Messi, etc., you're going to go and find positive ones. I just hope when September the 1st comes that we've done everything we need to do, and I just hope come at least pre-season that we've got some significant signings in, because we've been speaking about level raises, and I didn't want Kepa, but all right, cool. He's going to be second choice. I don't think Norgard is a bad player, and I'm not really got energy for him because you're just going to be a squad player of sorts. I think at this moment in time, Zubimendi is the only one I truly believe raises the level at the football club. For all the talk about, you know, all the Rodrigos and that, they haven't come through the door. And I think Arsenal fans know these things take time, but I just feel everything needs to make sense. And I don't think, you know, like in previous windows, we might need the left winger and a striker. We might only sign one of them. I don't believe we can kind of do that. I think we need to address all areas. I'm not saying we're going to buy 1 million stars, but we've left ourselves short really in previous markets. So it's going to need to be spot on. It has to work this summer.
Yeah, for sure. Because we're at that point, aren't we, where we need to get over the line. We probably had the tools to get over the line in the last few years, but for whatever reason, we didn't. Sometimes we fell a little bit short. Some things were in our control, others weren't. But the problem is that we come to a point now where not only do we need to win, but we've needed a bit of regeneration as well. And there's no guarantee that regeneration is gonna work straight away. So you look at, for instance, the fact that we've had to regenerate the midfield. You know, we didn't have to worry about the midfield in the past 2 years, but now we do. And in the meantime, the attack has gone a little bit stale as well. And we've had to now address that as well. So key areas of our team are having to be renewed, and that's it. I'm seeing some of the comments. It is funny. Like, there's a lot of comments.
I've learned to ignore them, bro.
I've seen it. Of course, Harry would support Madueke to Arsenal, or else he wouldn't